My boyfriend has a childhood female friend they grew up together since they were little. And their relationship is even closer than that of real siblings. That's exactly how Luke introduced Ava to me when we first started dating. I trusted him until Luke's junior female classmate gave me a hint. Zoe, don't just focus on your project, come and hang out in our laboratory more often. I was quite familiar with her, so I complained. I don't have the time, Don TU, know my supervisor's nickname. After a long while, my junior replied, Luke's younger sister comes to the laboratory to find him every day. Many people are guessing whether you've broken up with him. I was stunned. Luke isn't the kind of person who's flirtatious, and I have great trust in him. If it were some other girl, I might have playfully teased him about it. But Ava is his sister, so it could only be idle gossip from other sevens. So, when I happened to be on my way there and went to find Luke one time, I was still a bit shocked. Because Ava was really there, it was hot, and she had ordered takeout ice cream to Luke's laboratory. It seemed there was a miscalculation in the quantity, and there was exactly one less serving than needed, so she said, Luke, just bear with it, and share it with me. I stood at the door and stared straight as Ava held the ice cream up to Luke's mouth. Luke was looking at the computer and, probably feeling annoyed, turned his face away to avoid it. You know I don't like sweet things. Ava was about to say something more when the junior standing at the door noticed me and called out, Sister-in-law is here, come in quickly. Luke immediately turned his head around. Ava's hand trembled, and the ice cream happened to spill all over him. It was pink, presumably strawberry-flavored. Luke is a bit of a neat freak. He immediately grabbed his clothes and shook them twice, saying, So clumsy, aren't you being annoying? Ava suddenly got angry. She turned around and laughed, shouting, I was being nice and offering you some, but you're still blaming me. I'm going home to tell on you. Luke's face darkened. You got my clothes dirty, and you still think you're in the right? I know that Luke can be like a child sometimes, getting angry out of the blue. If Ava really went to tell on him, his parents would scold him and he'd be even more annoyed. So I quickly stopped Ava and tried to smooth things over. Don't go. I'll teach him a lesson for you, okay? In the end, it was Ava who offered to buy Luke a new piece of clothing. We took a taxi to the mall. Luke is tall with long legs and looks good in anything. But Ava has a discerning eye as he chattered nonstop throughout, asking Luke to try this and that. I felt bored, so I walked around the store and unconsciously started to look at the price tags on the clothes. My family of origin is of ordinary financial means, and a mall like this is definitely beyond my consumption range. I'm grateful for the mirrors placed crisscross in the store, because at that moment, through the reflection in the mirror, I saw Ava roll her eyes at the back of my head. What kind of expression was that? Probably a mix of disdain, mockery, and a kind of condescending pity. My hand felt as if it had been stung by a bug, and the clothes slipped from my hand. It was indeed of good quality. When the air conditioning blew on it, my fingertips felt icy cold. Ava slowly withdrew her gaze and walked away. I stood there quietly for half a minute before turning around and going back to the door of the fitting room. Luke stood in front of the mirror and asked impatiently, Ava, are you satisfied yet? This piece of clothing was finally approved by Ava. The salesperson deftly packed it up and said, There's no discount for this new item. It asks for 999 yuan. Do you have a membership card, ma'am? When I heard the price, my heart skipped a beat. Was it really that expensive? Just a week ago, I had bought Luke a set of pajamas for 99 yuan including shipping. I stepped forward and took Luke's hand, wanting to tell him not to buy it, but Ava had already carelessly taken out her credit card. This one then. After that, she gave Luke a meaningful look and said, As usual, I buy you clothes, and you treat me to dinner. The two of them walked side by side in the mall. The flower shop salesperson nearby immediately came up and said, Sir, buy a bouquet of roses for your girlfriend. We're having a promotion today. The corner of Ava's mouth curled up, and it seemed she was about to say yes. I gritted my teeth and took a step forward. Ava, if you like them, I'll buy them for you. You gave Luke a gift today, and I'll give you a return gift on his behalf. Ava retracted the hand that was reaching out to touch the rose petals. She gave me a sweet smile and said, Sister Zoe, I've received so many roses that I'm already tired of seeing them. And besides, giving flowers always has a meaning. What would it be like if you gave me roses? Yes. I couldn't give her roses, but could Luke give them to her? That night, I couldn't fall asleep at all. I thought for a long time about what Ada's mentality was. Was she really innocent and just freely exercising the right of a childhood female friend to act cockathiously towards her brother? Or did she have feelings for Luke and thus want to sabotage my relationship with Luke? The second thought seemed rather absurd, because if Ava really wanted to make a move on Luke, she could have done it more than 10 years ago. Why wait until now? So it could only be the first possibility. I was so afraid that I was being overly sensitive and thinking too much. I scrolled through countless posts online, staying up until my eyes were red, and finally came to a conclusion. I was right, even if they were childhood friends and even if the two families knew each other well. Once Luke had a girlfriend, he and she should have distanced themselves from each other. The first time I met Ava was in the CAF at University A. At that time, due to failing the college entrance examination, Ava went to study abroad, while Luke stayed in the local area and studied at University A. When she came back during the holidays, she found that there was already a me by Luke's side at that time. I thought she was a lively, uncheerful girl. Although she came from a wealthy family and inevitably had a bit of arrogance, she was still cute, but the gift she gave me when we first met really startled me. It was a bracelet from brand C. It was a rainy and overcast day, and the light was dim, but the bracelet still sparkled with a fine and dazzling light when I got back to my dormitory. I searched online for a long time and just couldn't believe that a piece of jewelry worth 5 figures was casually given to me by my boyfriend's sister. I asked Luke if we should return it. I checked on the official website, and it costs over 20. Dar you on it. Best to precious. This bracelet is more expensive than all the clothes in my wardrobe combined. I thought to myself that I probably wouldn't even wear it, but Luke didn't take it seriously. She must have bought it at the duty-free shop. Not at the original price, just take it, compared to what my parents gave her. This is nothing. Somehow, these words made their way to Ava's ears. She came to me and said, "Sister Zoe, actually I have a favor to ask. Our professor assigned a thesis, and I'm really struggling with it. Could you help me look up some information?" I wanted to refuse. Your school is abroad, and the course content is different. I'm afraid I won't be able to do a good job. Ava took my hand and swayed it back and forth. Sisters Zoe, Luke said you're a top student, you definitely can do it. Don't be modest. She actually sent me the package of materials and the details of the assignment. It did have something to do with my major, but I was still in a dilemma. If I did it, I was afraid I wouldn't do it well and would be laughed at. If I didn't do it, I had already accepted such an expensive gift from her, and it made me feel obligated in the end. I spent half a month in the library and finally managed to finish an assignment that looked decent. The week I finally completed Ava's assignment, Luke and Ava went on a vacation to Japan. To families. 6 people traveled together. Luke had asked me in advance if I wanted to join them. I did have some savings in hand, enough to cover the travel expenses, but spending all my savings in just 7 days made me feel reluctant. So I said, "Just bring me some souvenirs." Luke did bring back a whole box of snacks and mementos for me every time he picked up one item. He would tell me some interesting local stories. Telling you all these is like you've been there with me. As for Ava, not long after they came back, she ended her vacation early and flew back to school since then. She didn't return to the country for several years, judging from her posts on the social media. This girl seemed to be living a very happy life. She had several boyfriends, all of whom were all rich and handsome. Her style of dressing also gradually changed from innocent and pure at the beginning to hot and sexy. I had thought that Ava would immigrate, but who would have thought that after graduation, she resolutely returned to City A by then. Luke and I had already graduated from undergraduate studies and started our postgraduate studies. Ava didn't have much serious business to attend to. One moment she said she was going to apply for a master's degree and was preparing materials at home. Another moment, she said she wanted to start a business with friends. But there was no real action. Luke's mother once complained to me. Ava is a nice girl, but she's been spoiled by the family. Young people will waste their potential if they just idle around. My relationship with Luke was very stable. And I had also gained the recognition of his family. His aunt would occasionally take me out and even introduce me to others as my future daughter-in-law. She's excellent at studying, and I really like her. Her friends would naturally praise me for being sensible and well-behaved, but I also knew that there were some things I couldn't say directly to the elders. The Johnson family's financial situation was such that Ava could live comfortably, even if she never worked in her whole life. She wasn't like me. I was so afraid that my original family wouldn't meet the standards of Luke's parents, but I worked desperately on my studies, did research, tried to please my teachers, and hoped it would give me more projects just to make my resume look better. Because apart from my resume, I had nothing else. I said, Ava has such good conditions that she'll have a smooth path, no matter which way she chooses. Taking a little more time to figure out which way to go isn't idling around it. That's like sharpening the knife won't waste the time for cutting firewood. This was a lie, actually. What I thought in my heart was that Ava really should find something serious to do otherwise. She would often run to the laboratory to find Luke, pestering him to go shopping, have meals, meet friends, and watch movies with her. I felt quite helpless about that. The main reason I didn't immediately make it clear that I minded Ava was Luke's attitude towards her. Luke and I had been dating for many years, and I had already gotten to know all his male friends. He treated Ava the same way he treated his male friends, being carefree and not shy at all when he was being mean with his words. It could really make people angry. Luke and I didn't have the habit of reporting to each other about our meetings with friends. But when I asked about Ava, he would tell me the truth. I once hinted at him, "You're such a typical straight guy. Sometimes even I find you a bit much, but Ava always comes to you. Doesn't she have other friends?" He seemed not to understand at all. She's been studying abroad for several years, and she has grown a bit distant from her old friends. If Luke had a clear conscience and I asked him to be more careful about boundaries with his temper, he would definitely get angry. So I came up with a solution. Luke had a buddy named Jackson, who was our undergraduate alumnus because his cousin wanted to take the postgraduate entrance exam for University B. He asked for help in his social media post originally. I didn't really want to pay attention to Jackson because I thought he was too flamboyant and annoying, but this time, not only did I help Jackson's cousin revise his resume and prepare materials, but I even personally took him to visit the supervisor. Actually, it was still a bit early to do all these things at this time, but it's always good to plan ahead. The cousin's name was Oliver, and he was very tall. He had about 50 resemblance to Jackson, but their temperaments were completely different. His facial features were exquisitely handsome, but when he didn't smile, his eyes always looked a bit gloomy. Oliver's undergraduate school wasn't very prestigious, although he had won some professional-related awards during his college years and had a solid foundation. The supervisor's attitude was obviously a bit cold. Both Jackson and Oliver were a bit disheartened. I comforted them. At this stage, it's just about leaving a good impression on the teacher after all. The postgraduate entrance exam depends on the results. Don't worry. I'll contact the students from the previous class and get some materials for your brother. Since I had helped them, Jackson definitely wanted to repay me, so he invited me to dinner. When he was about to call Luke, I stopped him. Luke is busy recently. Don't bother him. Otherwise, if he can't get his data done, he'll blame me for wasting his time. Having dinner alone with Jackson would arouse suspicion. But with his younger brother joining, it was different. One woman and two men having dinner and talking about school exams sounded very normal. I deliberately chose an internet-famous restaurant. We spent an hour queuing up, and by the time we finished dinner, it was already 10 o'clock at night, probably because Jackson was overly enthusiastic. Oliver seemed even more silent. Luke and I talk on the phone every night. Up to now, he has called me 3 times, but I didn't answer. I guess that he was extremely angry, which is why he finally picked up the call and put it on speakerphone. "Zoe, where have you been? There's no one in the dormitory. And you didn't answer your phone." Making sure that Jackson and Oliver could hear, I added a touch of coquetry in my tone. "What's the matter? I'm with Jackson. I did him a favor, and he treated me to dinner. Luke seemed to be at a loss for words for a moment. It was only after 10 seconds that he said, "Where are you?" "I'm coming to find you." Presumably, to hide his earlier embarrassment, when Luke arrived at the restaurant, he not only vied with Jackson to pay the bill after failing to do so, he took the initiative to treat us and dragged everyone to a nearby bar for a few drinks. The three men chatted about everything from the stock market to national affairs. While I smiled and interjected a few jokes from time to time, the atmosphere was quite pleasant. It was already very late when we got back to school. Luke walked me to the dormitory entrance but didn't seem eager to leave. The night wind was sweltering. He put his arm around my waist and planted a kiss on my face. Suddenly, he seemed a bit annoyed. "Why did you go out with Jackson and not invite me? And you're wearing such a short skirt." I knew what Luke was thinking. A few years ago, before we started dating, Jackson had inquired about whether I was single. However, since Luke confessed his feelings first, Jackson gave up on the idea. I widened my eyes and pretended not to understand. "Didn't you say you had to do an experiment? Besides, I didn't hide it from you, and it's summer. Look at any girl, they all wear skirts." Luke was at a loss for words. "But Jackson is a guy. And his younger brother is also a guy, isn't he?" I giggled and pinched the flesh on his face. "Does it really matter if they're male or female? I don't even care about you and Dava. Why are you bothering about me and Jackson? We've always agreed not to interfere in each other's interactions with opposite-sex friends." Luke was speechless. Like a big puppy, he rubbed against my shoulder. "I'm petty. I'm jealous. Well, let's make a pact. You're not allowed to go out with guys alone in the future. And I won't go out with girls alone either. Deal?" That's exactly what I wanted to hear. I raised my eyebrows and drawled, "Deal." My little trick worked. Luke never went out with Ava alone again. But my worries didn't go away. Instead, they grew stronger. Ava always found a way to make Luke forget his promise to me. She quickly got a boyfriend and then broke up with him. She got drunk in a bar in the middle of the night. Luke went to pick her up. Since she was afraid of being scolded by her parents for coming home drunk, they went to Luke's off-campus apartment. The apartment had just been renovated and only had basic appliances. Luke occasionally stayed there. He had also invited me to spend the night. And he was very straightforward about it. My mom said when she bought this place that it's my future marital home. The more sincere Luke was, the more reserved I became, so I only went there a few times. And always during the daytime, but I never expected that the first person to spend the night with Luke there would be Ava. And what's more, she was the first one to tell me about it. Early in the morning, she sent me a random WeChat message out of the blue. "Sis Zoe, the mattress you bought is so comfortable. I want to buy one just like it." And she attached a happy emoji. I was a bit surprised. "What mattress?" "Oh, I spent the night at Luke's place yesterday, and I found the mattress in the master bedroom really comfortable." "Luke said you bought it." Rolling around JPG, I felt a surge of anger rising from the soles of my feet. "I did buy the mattress the year we graduated from undergraduate school. Luke's family bought a house in his name and wanted to train him by letting him take charge of the renovation. Coincidentally, during New Year's Day, Luke gave me a computer as a gift. I wanted to give him something in return, but couldn't think of what to get. It so happened that my roommate was working part-time for a mattress brand and had an employee discount. So I decided to go for something practical and bought a mattress for Luke. When he received it, he laughed so hard that he could hardly stand up straight and kept praising me for my originality. This also became a story he always told when he mentioned, "My girlfriend has a really big imagination." Presumably, Ava had also heard him tell this story. I reached out and pinched my thigh, using the pain to help me regain my composure. Then I quickly sent Ava a voice message. "Okay, I'll give you the salesperson's number, just mention my name. And he'll give you a discount." Ava's voice message came right away. "No need, my parents are rich. I don't have to be as frugal as you. Sis Zoe. Having to carefully calculate every penny when buying a mattress." The biggest issue weighing on my mind since dating Luke was the huge gap between our families of origin. I was also most afraid of others saying that I fell in love with Luke because of his money. Ava really knew how to hit the mark. I pretended not to understand the hidden meaning in her words. I pressed the record button, my tone cheerful, but with a hint of complaint. There's no other way. I'm already in the mindset of preparing for marriage and living a life for daily necessities like firewood, rice, oil, and salt, of course. I have to be thrifty. But Ava doesn't have a boyfriend right now, so she really can't think that far ahead. Ava didn't reply to me anymore. I turned off my phone and felt a buzzing sound in my ears, which took a long time to subside so far. The way things have developed has already crossed my bottom line. I admit that I have many flaws. From a worldly perspective, I may not even be worthy of Luke. My parents are both workers and don't have much educational background in contrast. Luke's parents. One is a professor who travels all over the world giving lectures, and the other is in business and has a thriving career apart from the fact that I was lucky enough to have a smart mind and not bad looks. I really don't have much to show for myself. It's understandable that Ava looks down on me. But it would be absurd to give up on Luke and our relationship just because of the provocation from Luke's childhood friend before Ava came back to the country. We had been in a relationship for over 4 years, and it was always extremely sweet. We were even regarded as a model couple on campus. I love Luke. The wealth brought by his family of origin has always made him confident and cheerful. I absorbed his warmth like a sponge and replenished myself with it when old friends reunite. Many people would say, "Zoe, you've changed a lot since you went to college." In fact, I'm becoming more and more like Luke, and I know that Luke loves me without reservation. According to him, he fell for me the moment he saw me during the military training. All the girls in our company were afraid of getting sunburned and were slacking off. But I was meticulously practicing the drill. She thought to himself, how could there be a girl who could endure so much hardship? Later, we stayed up all night studying together. He was so sleepy that he dozed off, while I managed to stay up the whole night. I splashed essential balm on my forehead as if it were free, determined to review until I secured one of the top 3 spots in the exams. Luke once sighed and said, "Zoe, you're really tough on yourself, but I like that about you. Since I was a child, I've been educated to be thrifty. When my socks get holes, I just mend them and wear them again." Luke is the boyfriend I've chosen, and I won't give up on him just because of a minor issue. Since my previous subtle hints didn't work, this time, I decided to be straightforward. I found Luke and asked him frankly, "Did you take Ava to your place to stay that day?" Luke was stunned for a moment. "Did she tell you?" I told her not to say anything." As if afraid that I'd get the wrong idea, he quickly added, "It was too late, so I didn't inform you later. We had a few more drinks at home, and I fell asleep. When I woke up, it was already noon. But don't be angry. She slept on the bed, and I slept on the sofa. I swear to God, we were just drinking and chatting. I remember all the promises I made to you." It seemed that he knew he should keep his distance from Ava, but if he knew, why couldn't he do it? This wasn't the time to assign blame. I pretended to be shocked and lightly hit him. "What are you thinking? How could I suspect you and Ava? You've called her your little sister for 20 years. When your little sister is heartbroken, of course you should comfort her, right?" Luke was clearly even more confused. I said earnestly, "I just want to say that your way of handling it wasn't entirely appropriate when Ava didn't come home at night. Instead of worrying about her family scolding her for drinking, her family was more concerned about her safety. If a beautiful young woman stays at a male friend's house, wouldn't that make people worried? You should have sent Ava to a female friend's house instead." This was the most rational and considerate explanation I could come up with. Ava was young and inexperienced. Luke was constrained by social etiquette, and I was virtuous, magnanimous, and not jealous at all. It's quite interesting that everyone has their own persona. Since I was a child, I've had the courage to take risks. In my blood, that's why, when I saw my college entrance examination results and knew I could get into an ordinary first-tier university, I resolutely chose to repeat my senior year of high school, aiming for a well-known university. I bet right, and the university I got into after repeating a year provided me with a higher starting point, and because of that, I met Luke, who was clearly from a different social class later. even though both Luke and I were eligible for postgraduate recommendation at our university. I insisted on taking the entrance exam for University B, a top university in China just a wall away. It was a do-or-die situation. During that time, I was so stressed that I had acne all over my face, but I finally succeeded in getting admitted as it turned out. When Luke saw the admission notice, he was even more proud than I was. He told everyone, "My girlfriend is a genius student." It was only after this that our relationship was gradually accepted by his family. Since I'd decided to mend the cracks in our relationship, I won't back down in the face of difficulties. I thought I could surely solve this problem. But Luke's single sentence shattered my defenses. "I've already told Uncle Johnson that Ava stayed at my place, and they were quite reassured." My smile froze on my face. So, did the Johnsons know and even give their tacit approval? I was really naive. It might not be appropriate for Ava to stay at a male friend's house. But if that friend was Luke, it seemed to be okay. The trust between childhood friends, built up over decades, was as solid as a fortress and couldn't crumble easily. I quickly put on an expression of sudden realization. "You should have told me earlier." I worried for nothing. Luke really thought that everything was fine now. He came over and hugged me. "Honey, you're the best. You always think of me." Well, I really couldn't turn her down. You know, Uncle Johnson has always treated me like his own son, and I couldn't just ignore Ava. I let Luke act coke this lie. But I just felt annoyed. However, I shouldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment. There are always more solutions than problems. If Ava's parents don't mind her staying overnight in Luke's room, then surely Luke's parents will have something to say, right? After all, they should also care about Luke's reputation. I found an opportunity and said to Luke's mother, "Ava recently broke up with her boyfriend. Did you know that?" And I was indeed curious. "Oh, what happened?" I deliberately brought up the matter of Ava's overnight stay. Ava was drunk and stayed at Luke's house in Baihu Garden for the night, and Luke didn't tell the family. I was really worried that something might happen to her. Luke's mother's hand that was peeling grapes paused for a moment. For a split second, I thought Auntie would say something fair. But soon, she started chatting nonstop. They've always been like this when they were kids. They covered for each other whenever one of them did something wrong. The other would protect them. Luke's mother rambled on about the two children's interesting stories for a full 10 minutes before she stopped. My heart gradually sank, but this was the result I expected. Wasn't it? Auntie wasn't going to help me keep Luke in check either. In her heart, even though Luke and Ava were in their 20s, they were still children. The bond between them, who grew up together, and the friendship between the two families over decades, was much deeper than my status as a future daughter-in-law with just a few years of acquaintance. I'm afraid that if I ask Luke and Ava to avoid suspicion, she'll think I'm being meddlesome. I'm truly getting tired of this whole thing. Such a precious childhood sweetheart. I can't get rid of her. I can't afford to offend her. I can't hit or scold her. And it's useless to coax her even if I try to reason with her. She might not appreciate it. What should I do? What can I do? I had been worried for 3 days. But unexpectedly, I came up with a solution. Can the fable "if the mountain won't come to Muhammad, then Muhammad must go to the mountain" also be interpreted in a way that if the mountain is moved away, no one can come over? Since I can't stop Ava from coming to Luke, then I'll make Luke stay away from Ava. Both he and I are willing to pursue a career in scientific research. If we apply for a PhD program abroad, we can naturally keep Ava at a distance. And considering our career development, having overseas experience would be extremely beneficial. Before Ava inserted herself into our lives, I had an open and honest conversation with Luke about this possibility. Luke wasn't very keen on leaving the environment he was familiar with. However, he said that if he were to go with me, he could accept it. The biggest obstacle came from his family. Luke's elderly grandparents were not in good health and had been living in a nursing home. The old folks regarded Luke, their only grandson, very highly, and I'm afraid his parents wouldn't be willing to let Luke go abroad. So, regarding the option of going abroad, I have two sets of plans. The best outcome would be that Luke is willing to go with me voluntarily and his family doesn't oppose it. In this way, we can completely cut off Ava's influence on us. The worst outcome is that Luke is willing to go but can't because his parents don't agree, but this situation isn't without a solution either. I can take the opportunity to stay behind and make Luke feel indebted to me, so that he will voluntarily distance himself from his family. Including a Vate sounds calculating. But as long as I handle it properly, it's not impossible to succeed. I've made up my mind in order to make my resume look more appealing so that I can get a full scholarship to cover my living expenses. I've been working on data analysis and writing articles with almost all my might. I've been spending day and night in the laboratory. Occasionally, when I take a 5-minute break, I pick up my phone and scroll through social media apps. Ava, with her outgoing personality, naturally loves to share. I know all of her social media accounts on her main account. She presents herself as a confident, sunny, and down-to-earth wealthy young woman. She has quite a lot of followers. And people often comment that she's a gorgeous and kind-hearted, delicate young lady. But she also has a secondary account on this account. She can be sentimental at times, literary at other times, and sometimes even silly and funny. To be honest, if I hadn't met her in person, I would think the version of her on the secondary account is quite cute. And I'd be willing to be friends with her while I was grinding my teeth and working hard to accumulate articles. Ava posted photos of a gathering with Luke and their friends on her main account. 5 or 6 friends were huddled together, and without a doubt, Ava was the closest to Luke. My heart was sharply by something. All along, I had been certain that Ava didn't really have any intentions towards Luke, because among the ex-boyfriends she had shown off on her secondary account, without exception, they were all playboys who were proficient and having fun, completely different from Luke, a simple and somewhat boring science and engineering guy. But what if I was wrong? I thought too much, and my head ached terribly when I went downstairs to pick up my takeout, probably due to the exhaustion from working continuously for days and low blood sugar. My legs gave way, and I fell down the stairs. I had a pretty bad fall. I sprained my ankle, and my forehead was bleeding. I was in a complete mess. It was Sunday night, and the teaching building was empty. Even though I made such a commotion, no one came to check on me. I struggled to sit up and open my phone to see who could come to my aid. I clicked on Luke's WeChat avatar. The last WeChat voice message between us was, "Today is Ava's birthday, and we're going to sing at XX. I'll call you when I get back to the dormitory later. Okay, don't drink too much." Luke was with Ava. He was accompanying her on her birthday. Was it the right time to call him now? The pain affected my thinking, and I hesitated for half a minute, but still couldn't make the most advantageous decision. When I opened my eyes again, a pair of shoes appeared in my field of vision, pure white sneakers, spotless. The owner of the shoes slowly squatted down until our eyes were at the same level. It was Oliver. It wasn't really surprising that he was here ever since he had an unsuccessful meeting with the supervisor. He started contacting senior students and occasionally helped with errands in the hope of making a good impression. Come to think of it, this kid has a strong sense of purpose, somewhat like me. Oliver lowered his gaze. "Senior, if your boyfriend can't come because he's helping someone celebrate their birthday, I can take you to the hospital." Had he heard everything? I felt a bit embarrassed and tried to explain. "Don't bother. I can go to the hospital by myself." Oliver pinned me in place with just one sentence. "There's something wrong between the two of you." His tone was indifferent, and I couldn't figure out his intentions. But I'm not really concerned about it. He held out his hand to me. "Get up. I can take you to the hospital faster." "Senior, aren't you racing against time to publish articles? The time you waste now will have to be made up for many times over later." I was stunned for 3 seconds and then placed my hand in Oliver's palm. Oliver was right. Even if I wanted to use my injury to manipulate Luke, I couldn't put the cart before the horse and let the injury delay my thesis data. I had thought Oliver would just help me up. But he looked at the wound on my face and without a word, picked me up in his arms. My head was pressed against his chest involuntarily, and I could feel his slightly heavy but powerful heartbeat. I never thought that although he looked thin, he had the strength to give me a Princess Carrie. "Thank you." "You're welcome." Oliver was indeed quick. In less than an hour, my sprained ankle was treated, and the doctor prescribed some oral glucose for me. The CT scan results showed that there was nothing serious. It was already quite late. But Oliver didn't seem tired at all. While he was methodically organizing the hospital documents for me and sorting them according to the size of the papers, he said, "You can call him to come and pick you up now." "What?" "Call your boyfriend to come and pick you up. Your girlfriend gets injured, and he only shows up after her wounds are treated. When he sees such an understanding girlfriend, his guilt should double." "That's what you're thinking, isn't it, Senior?" "Senior, don't worry that I'll consider it as my thank you gift for you introducing me to the supervisor." Maybe my mind was really dull, and it took me a long time to realize that Oliver had actually seen through my intentions long ago. I went to great lengths to set a trap for Luke, however. The boy standing before me managed to figure out the whole story just from a few words with someone of the same kind. "There's no need to waste words," I smiled and said. "Since you think so, I don't need to stand on ceremony with you anymore." It was past midnight when Luke's call came as expected. His tone on the phone clearly indicated that he was having a great time. "I just finished the gathering, but Ava said she wants to go somewhere else." I interrupted him at the right moment. "Have you been drinking? If you have, then forget it." "Zoe, what's wrong?" I gave a light cough, making my voice even huskier. "I accidentally fell down and just came back from the emergency room. If you've been drinking and can't drive, I'll take a taxi back to school." Luke's voice immediately turned serious. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Let me accompany you to see the doctor." "Don't move. I'm coming right now." I hung up the phone and Oliver lazily stood up. "Ben, I'll be leaving now. Good night, Senior." I thanked him again. Half an hour later, Luke appeared at the door. His worry and compassion were genuine. That's just the kind of person he is. Full of emotions and a soft heart. Luke carefully went through my medical records first, and then gently supported me as we moved towards the door. "You didn't even tell me when you got hurt. Zoe. Let me be with you through these things, you know? You're so sensible that it makes me feel." I shook my head with a smile. "It's not that I can't tell what's important. I just had a fall, but it's Ava's birthday, and it only comes once a year. Besides, all your friends were there. How could you not go?" Luke's arm muscles tensed up. He stopped and said with dissatisfaction, "But you only get hurt once in 20 years. Come on." "Okay. I get it. You talk so much." "No, Zoe. I have to make this clear to you. Ava is important, but she will never be more important than you. From now on, whenever you have something, you must call me. Got it? My girlfriend is more important than anyone else in the world." Luke was still babbling on about something, but I was too tired to listen. My gaze drifted to the boy at the entrance of the consulting room. The pale streetal twilight cast on him, outlining his stern features. Oliver kept his head half down, threw the cigarette in his hand into the trash can, and then looked up at me. His eyes were distant, as if he was watching an outsider's show. I nodded slightly at him. Then Oliver made a victory gesture at me, turned around, and disappeared into the vast night. Because of my fall, Luke was extremely indulgent towards me. He almost accompanied me every day and tried all sorts of ways to make me happy if I hadn't persuaded him kindly. I'm afraid he wouldn't even have wanted to go home on weekends. But my goal was more than that. Taking this opportunity, I also made appointments with other departments, such as for my poor sleep and stomach discomfort. I had a checkup for all kinds of minor and major problems. There was a traditional Chinese medicine doctor who was really helpful after feeling my pulse. He had a serious expression on his face. The doctor explained to me, in simple terms for a long time, about what diseases could be caused by staying up late, an unbalanced diet, and excessive worrying. "Young lady, don't be brave just because you're young. You still need to take good care of your body. Your boyfriend should also keep a closer eye on you." After getting the medicine, Luke was obviously a bit worried. He carefully tried to persuade me. "Zoe, I know you're a very hardworking girl, but I want to say that you actually don't have to push yourself this hard." "Huh? You can take a break. I'll always be here for you. I'm a grown man, and I'll definitely take good care of you." I was stunned and didn't say anything for a long time. Luke thought I was angry and quickly tried to soothe me. I didn't mean that you can't be diligent and serious. I meant you have me. And you can rely on me with confidence. Look, although my family isn't extremely wealthy, it's more than enough to cover our expenses. Considering the financial power of Luke's parents and how much they dote on him, saying more than enough was probably an understatement. I shook my head and said seriously, "It's precisely because your family is so good that I'm working this hard. Silly? Do you think I don't feel tired? Do you think I don't need rest? But I'm afraid because I don't have the confidence. Over the years, I've never shown much negative emotion in front of Luke. In his eyes, I'm always serious, motivated, unbeatable, and unwilling to give up. But this time, I was very honest with him and told him that I had felt bad many times over the years. I've learned a lot of the etiquette for dealing with people from Luke. He's so at ease, making me look as clumsy as a child in comparison sometimes. I would recite these so-called worldly wisdom in my heart and then memorize them repeatedly to make them my own. Our first trip cost more than 5,000 yuan, and I insisted on going Dutch just as we were returning. My phone broke, adding an extra expense. I ate instant noodles for 2 weeks before I received the payment for my part-time job. During the preparation for the postgraduate entrance examination, I had a bad case of acne on my face. My roommate recommended expensive skincare products, but I couldn't bear to buy them instead. I ran around the playground every night because I thought sweating through exercise didn't cost money. It wasn't until I was admitted as a postgraduate student at University B and I mustered up the courage to visit Luke's parents. I was like a little fox borrowing the power of a tiger. I only dared to meet them by relying on the reputation of my school. At being admitted to University B didn't mean that everything would go smoothly from then on. There was a girl in my classmate circle who came from a wealthy family and was good at using money to build good relationships since I was short on money and reluctant to treat others. I found another way out. I would patiently answer the questions that the junior students couldn't solve because of this. I could compete with the rich and beautiful senior, even when considering going abroad to study for a PhD. Unlike Ava, who could casually use millions as tuition fees, I could only rely on the scholarship provided by the school. I would even consider lowering the level of the school just for the amount of the scholarship. I'm just so sensitive and inferior no matter how free and easy I seem on the outside. I'm always uneasy. The source of my unease is that I'm afraid that I, a small-town student who excels in exams, don't deserve Luke, who grew up in a superior family. When someone who is always strong shows weakness, it can be particularly shocking. The result of baring my heart and soul to him was just as I had expected. Luke's eyes welled up with tears. "Zoe, don't be like this. You're already amazing. I've never once thought that you're not good enough for me. From now on, I'll love you even more than before and make you feel more confident, okay?" I believed he was telling the truth. There was an honest and sincere side to Luke's character. Once he trusted someone, he would open up completely and let his guard down without reservation. I stopped crying and smiled, using my finger to gently scrape his nose. "Silly, you've already been so good to me. How else do you plan to love me? Are you trying to outdo other couples?" Luke didn't respond to my teasing. There was an urgent yet determined light in his eyes. I could vaguely guess what was on his mind. And this was also the result of my careful guidance. Luke and I had been in a relationship for 5 years, and it seemed only natural to move on to the next stage. In fact, if it hadn't been for Ava's interference, I wouldn't have gone to such lengths to extract a promise from Luke, but I supposed it wasn't a bad thing to give him a little push at the right moment. In the following days, Luke was always secretly playing with his phone and chatting with his friends. Occasionally, when I picked up his phone, I pretended not to see the text message notification that said, "The XX romantic decoration you purchased has been shipped." The weather had turned cooler, and on a certain day in autumn, it was my 24th birthday. I suspected that Luke's big move would take place on this day. I pretended to think that Luke had invited me to a restaurant just to celebrate my birthday, but when I arrived at the restaurant as planned and saw the decorations, I couldn't hold back my tears. Luke had invited more than a dozen of our mutual friends to witness the moment. He was dressed in a sharp suit and even had his hair styled, which was quite unusual for him. He knelt down on one knee, opened the small velvet box in his hand, and proposed to me in front of everyone. "Zoe, please marry me." The projector in the center of the restaurant played a loop of our photos from all these years together. We had attended classes together, participated in competitions, joined clubs, and gone on trips. My makeup skills had improved over time, and Luke had become more and more refined in his demeanor. Looking at these photos that captured our happiness, I knew that even after many years, they would still move me. I thought I was someone who didn't show my emotions easily, and I thought I could control my feelings, but when I heard those words, I still broke down and sobbed uncontrollably. I wiped the tears from my face and said, "Yes." This scene was captured by our friends, and then posted on their respective social media platforms. Everyone was smiling and offering their blessings. The laughter was like an endless, undulating wave that made me feel dizzy. Luke leaned close to me and whispered, "Let's treat them to lunch, and then we'll go and get our marriage certificate in the afternoon. I've already made an appointment." Just as I was about to tease him for being too eager, Luke's phone rang. He picked it up and took a look. His expression suddenly turning serious, he gestured to me and walked to a quiet corner to make a call. I quietly moved closer and heard Luke's mother's anxious voice. "Hurry up. Ava is in trouble. She's in the hospital." Luke looked a bit helpless. "Mom, I can't leave right now. I have something important here." "What are you talking about, son?" "You proposed to Zoe without telling us. Ava was so eager to come and celebrate with you that she rushed out and got hit by a car. You have to come and see her, both morally and emotionally." "Mom, can I go later? Zoe and I? Our family has been friends with the Johnson family for decades. Uncle Johnson was so kind to you when you were a child. You're being so indecisive, Ray, going to drive me crazy." Luke gave a bitter smile. Okay, don't be upset. I'll go right away." He hung up the phone, but seemed to be torn between two choices and didn't turn around to come back to me. Seeing Luke in such a difficult position, I clasped my hands together, and the diamond on my ring finger, which I had just put on, pressed painfully against my skin. Ava. It was always Ava. Why did this girl keep showing up in my life? Was it really just a coincidence that she got injured at this crucial moment? But I couldn't stop him. Luke was a kind and soft-hearted person since he had fallen into my little plan. He would naturally feel compelled to care about other seven in the middle of his proposal. He couldn't resist his mother's orders and would leave me behind to visit his childhood friend. As for leaving me alone to deal with all these friends at the scene, I'm sure he was also in a difficult situation, but did I really deserve to bear the brunt of his dilemma? These friends here weren't just his friends. They were mine too. Did they have to be embarrassed along with me? I retreated to the restroom to calm myself down. It felt as if an axe had split me into two people. One was wild and angry, wanting nothing more than to rush out and slap Luke across the face. The other was calm and rational, carefully weighing my options and thinking about what I should do in this situation to avoid being laughed at by everyone. No matter what I did, it seemed wrong. And no matter what I did, I felt wronged. I didn't want to keep getting caught up in this endless tug-of-war with Luke's childhood friend. Of course, I could continue to use my wiles to control Luke. But what would be the end result of that? And even if I managed to win over Ava, so what? All I would have achieved was what every other girl should naturally have: the full love and respect of her boyfriend. Perhaps it was time to let go completely, but this definitely wasn't the right moment to break up. After being in a relationship for so many years, Luke's and my social circles overlapped too much. Even if it was going to be the end, I wanted to orchestrate a conclusion that no one could fault me for. 5 minutes later, I walked out with a calm expression and asked Luke if something was wrong. After he explained that Ava was on her way to celebrate with us, but got injured accidentally, I didn't question why she had to come in person instead of just sending a WeChat message. Nor did I criticize her for being so careless. I also didn't doubt what Luke could do at the hospital since he wasn't a doctor. Instead, I suggested without a hint of resentment, "Hurry up and go see Ava. Leave this to me. You need to take care of the relationship between our two families, and since you invited so many friends, you should show them some respect, so go ahead. I'll take care of them. I can handle my own party." If Luke had changed his mind at this moment, I might have reconsidered my earlier thoughts. But he clearly didn't notice my emotions and instead seemed relieved. "Okay, Zoe, you raised so understanding. I'll come back as soon as I'm done at the hospital. He really left. I watched him go, as if bidding farewell to the past 5 years of my life. The proposal, with the sudden disappearance of the groom-to-be, didn't turn into an awkward and cold moment. I brought out all the social skills I had learned throughout my life and took excellent care of everyone present. I not only took photos myself but also asked others to take pictures of me after taking the photos. I even reminded everyone to post them on their moments. The more heartbroken I felt inside, the brighter I forced myself to smile when the lunch ended. I barely took a few bites of the food. Yet I didn't feel hungry at all after seeing off all the guests. I decided to go to the hospital after all. Ava was injured, and I felt I had to go and see her. I asked the waiter to pack a few of the decorative roses for me. These roses were just like the ones we saw in the mall that time. Since Ava liked them, I thought I'd give her a bouquet. By the time I rushed to the hospital, it was already evening. In the hospital, everyone looked hasty and worried. I, who had just had what seemed like a wonderful thing happen, the proposal, should have been joyful, but when I passed a mirror, I realized that my face looked just as gloomy as theirs. I managed to find Ava's hospital room without any trouble. Just as I had guessed, her injury wasn't too serious, at least in my opinion. It was just a scraped knee, but since she was lying in the VIP ward of the hospital, there must be a reason for it. I didn't question it and simply placed the bouquet of flowers beside Ava's bed. She was lying on the bed with her eyes closed, seemingly asleep, so I greeted Ava's parents, who were keeping her company. They had a similar aura to Luke's parents, exuding the kind of condescending friendliness typical of elders, but perhaps it was just my imagination. Both of their expressions seemed a bit strange. Uncle Johnson seemed to want to say something but held back, while Auntie let out a long sigh and took my hand. "You're Zoe, right? This time, it's our Ava who was being unreasonable. I'll scold her. This child has been spoiled by us. It's our fault as parents." Mr. Johnson made a hissing sound and gently patted Auntie's arm. "What are you talking about? The child is already in the hospital bed. Can't you wait until she gets better to say whatever you want?" Auntie glared at him. "Johnson, just keep indulging her. Sooner or later." But she always had me in mind and didn't finish her sentence. I had long known that Ava was her father's late-in-life daughter and was doted on a great deal. Now that I saw it with my own eyes, it was indeed the case. However, if it was just because Ava had messed up our proposal, it seemed that there was no need for them to be so angry. There was something hidden in their words, and I had to get to the bottom of it. I turned around and left the room, trying to find Luke. I was really lucky, I guess, after searching for a short while. I saw Luke's figure in the stairwell on the top floor. Standing next to him, unholding his arm, was Luke's mother. She was earnestly persuading him. "Zoe is really nice. I've never said she's not, but such a big thing as your proposal. You didn't even discuss it with the family. Do you think you're all grown up and don't need your parents anymore?" Luke said impatiently. "I've been in a relationship with Zoe for 5 years. Isn't it right for me to give her a promise? It is right. But look at Ava's situation now, son. Why don't you think about it a bit more before making a decision? We can't let Ava feel wronged." Luke clenched his fist tightly, furious. "Cut it out. Ava is lying. I grew up with her. Do you think I can't tell? She's full of lies. And you actually believe her. How could she possibly like me?" My heart jolted so. Ava really did like Luke. The amount of information these few words carried was really overwhelming. If I hadn't already decided to give up on this relationship, I'm afraid I would have been extremely heartbroken. I had speculated countless times before whether Ava's presence between us was just my oversensitivity, or if she had other motives. Now that the answer was revealed, at this moment, I actually felt like laughing. After being childhood friends for over 20 years, they still couldn't become lovers. I bet Ava thought that I was the one who was interfering in their relationship. Luke's mother was still pleading desperately. "If you don't believe it, that's okay, but we still have to give the Johnsons an explanation. How about this? Anyway, you're still young and haven't graduated yet. There's really no rush. You two don't get the marriage certificate for now. Let us talk about it after Ava recovers." Luke was probably so pestered by his mother that he had no other choice. He turned around and kicked the stainless steel railing in the stairwell hard. The loud noise echoed in the empty stairwell. Auntie was startled. Suddenly, she stopped talking, covered her face, squatted down, and started sobbing. I didn't want to watch this farce any longer. I don't remember how I left the hospital and got back to school. My phone battery was down to the last bar. My WeChat was flooded today. Everyone was sending me messages to congratulate me, saying that lovers finally got married. How ironic. At noon, I was still full of joy at the thought of marrying Luke, but in the evening, I found out that the childhood friend also likes him. And his mother was begging him not to marry me. Was I disheartened? Did I feel sorry for myself? Neither. I just thought, oh, so that's how it is, that's all. My parents didn't even finish high school and had to work in a factory. The work in the factory was both hard and didn't pay well. Among our relatives, the elderly were old and some were sick. And there were always people coming to borrow money. It wasn't until I went to college that our situation improved a bit. So I was very cautious even though I had been in a relationship with Luke for 3 years. I didn't dare to accept his invitation to visit his home. I was afraid of being asked, "Zoe, what do your parents do for a living?" Luke had told me countless times, "My parents aren't like that as long as they think you're a nice person. They won't object." I was tempted, but I still gritted my teeth and didn't visit his home until I was admitted as a postgraduate student at B University on that day. They indeed showed great enthusiasm and praised me highly. I had naively thought that I was just judging them with a petty mindset, wrongly assuming they had ulterior motives when in fact they didn't. Turns out I was just naive. Luke's parents had never really approved of me. They just didn't want to make their son unhappy, so they never voiced their opposition. They were okay with us dating casually, but marriage? Absolutely out of the question. The more I thought about it, the colder I felt all over. I desperately needed something to warm myself up, like alcohol, but I couldn't drink too much because maybe Luke would want to talk to me. And I had to stay rational. I bought 3 cans of beer in a restrained manner and sat on the bleachers of the playground, sipping them in silence. But by 11:30, Luke still hadn't come to find me. Not even a single WeChat message. So, with a beer can in my mouth, I lazily typed out a message. "I went to the hospital to see Ava tonight, but I didn't see you. I'm going back to the dorm to rest first. Let me know when you've settled down. Love you." A breakup was inevitable right now, with emotions overwhelming me. The best thing to do was to stay put and wait. Once I was sober, I would come up with a plan. The one who broke up with him had to be me. But the reason for the breakup couldn't be me. The alcohol numbed my nerves. And for the first time in ages, I slept in. When I woke up, I was in a good mood. I went to find Luke and also took the opportunity to ask about Ava. When I asked if anything had happened in the hospital, Luke's eyes flickered a little uneasily. Nothing happened. Ava was just being careless and didn't look when crossing the road. She'll be able to be discharged in a few days. Luke wasn't very good at lying. The way he was acting now was already his best attempt at pretending to be calm. There could be many reasons why he was hiding something from me. Maybe he was afraid I'd worry. Or maybe he was afraid I'd take my anger out on Ava anyway. The fact that he couldn't be completely honest with me meant that he was really struggling inside. I acted as if nothing was wrong and said, "I see then, I'm relieved, but about us getting our marriage certificate." Luke froze. But I spoke up first. "I thought about it again. Let us wait until we graduate. After all, getting married is a big deal. And our parents should meet and talk about it again, and there are so many things going on recently. I'm afraid if we rush into it, we'll end up neglecting other important things, and that wouldn't be good." Luke didn't say anything. He just pulled me into his arms. "Zoe, I won't let you down. You have to trust me." Trust him? I had already trusted him many times and given him countless chances, but unfortunately, he had never been able to seize them. It was easy to understand. Unlike me, who had lacked a sense of security since childhood and would cling to opportunities like an octopus, Luke was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He had countless opportunities in his life. If he missed one, there would always be another to take its place. This time, the last bit of softness in my heart had been completely exhausted. Once upon a time, I thought Luke was the partner I would spend my life with. He was sincere, enthusiastic, and charming in his interactions with others. She respected the elderly and cared for women. We had common academic pursuits. And we would even laugh at the same obscure parts in movies that others couldn't understand. but I had overlooked the fact that he was also a obedient and filial good boy. I said, Ava's accident really scared me. We're both only children. If something really happened to us, how worried our families would be. How about this? Let's not go abroad. Let's just stay at the university and pursue a PhD degree. Luke was overjoyed and nodded in agreement. He wasn't really keen on leaving home and going far away in the first place, so this was definitely the best option for him. Luke withdrew his application materials. But I didn't. Instead, I applied to a few more schools just like I said. I'm a gambler. I'm betting that without love, my luck will shift to my academic pursuits. I'm betting that with God's blessing, I'll be able to obtain flawless experimental data and publish a satisfactory thesis. Finally, I'm also betting that since Luke doesn't dare to tell me the whole truth about Ada's confession, I'll play along and catch him off guard. I pretended as if nothing had happened and increased the frequency of my visits to the Smith family. After all, I was his official girlfriend and fiancée, so of course I could go to Luke's house whenever I wanted. The more I went, and since I often brought gifts and fruits, even the security guards and cleaners in the community knew that I was the future daughter-in-law of the Smith family. As for adding their WeChat contacts and helping them solve some problems like a black-screened mobile phone, that was just out of politeness. And I didn't have any other motives. Once I heard the cleaner Anti in the community greeting Luke's mother and praising me for being sensible and generous. In our hometown dialect, it's said that a virtuous wife can bring prosperity to 3 generations. Your future daughter-in-law is really wonderful. So kind and sensible. You're so lucky. Hey, aren't they married yet? When will we get to attend the wedding? I couldn't see Luke's mother's expression clearly, but I guessed that she wasn't feeling lucky at all. Instead, she was probably annoyed. What made things even more difficult for Luke's mother was that I also proposed to visit the Johnson family, who lived just next door. Ava got injured while celebrating for me, of course. I have to go and visit her. Ava naturally had a headache and refused to see me. It was Auntie Johnson who received me, and we chatted about some interesting things at school. We didn't run out of topics. As we talked, I, surprisingly, discovered that both of Ava's parents were somewhat involved in the academic circle, and they were even alumni of the same class as my supervisor. So I eagerly showed her the WeChat conversation records between my supervisor and me. Auntie, this is the guy my supervisor asked me to introduce to someone. Look, he and Ava make a really good couple, don't they? If you agree, should I introduce them to each other? The boy's resume and photos were all real, and I had indeed been given that task, but of course, my real purpose wasn't to introduce a boyfriend to Ava. Instead, I used this as an opportunity to show the Johnsons my social circle, since it was about her daughter's lifelong happiness. Auntie Johnson really put on her glasses and studied the information for a long time without saying a word. She seemed a bit tempted but was also hesitant because of her daughter's crush on Luke and didn't dare to make the introduction. Most of Auntie Johnson's understanding of me should have come from what Luke's mother had told her. However, Luke's mother was in business, and I didn't think it was appropriate to discuss too many academic issues with her, for fear that she would find it boring. So, I'm afraid the Johnsons' impression of me is still that of a student from a small town in X, who only knows how to bury themselves in books and whose family has no money. Indeed, my parents don't have many connections in City A. But I've never had the intention of relying on my parents. And what if I don't have my parents' help? I am my own network. I slowly scrolled through my phone and brought up a few more pictures, chatting casually. Look, this is a group photo of me, Teacher X, and this guy at an academic conference. Teacher Y published an article, and I helped with some of the data. Oh, I heard that he once worked temporarily at your workplace. You must know him, right? Finally, I showed a group photo of myself, Luke, and several other teachers and students from University B. I took that picture after winning a prize in a competition, and my friends took it for us. In the sunlight, everyone was beaming. Luke had his arm around my shoulder, standing right in the middle. Luke and I are both very lucky. We both have great mentors, and it just so happens that they're friends with each other. Both teachers want to be the witnesses at our future wedding. It's really interesting, I said. The more I talked, the more serious Aunt Johnson's expression became. I'm afraid she never expected that there would be so many people vouching for our love. I admit that I'm still taking a gamble. I'm betting that Aunt Johnson doesn't have the guts to let her daughter steal a boyfriend from a helpless poor student. But if this poor student is the beloved protege of her alumni or colleagues, then she has to think twice. The Johnsons definitely like Luke. Ava's parents watched Luke grow up and know that he's excellent in his studies and has good character, compared to the unreliable boyfriends Ava has had in the past. Luke is undoubtedly a great choice. Helping this pair of childhood sweethearts get married would surely save them a lot of trouble. However, unlike Uncle Johnson, who dotes on his only daughter without measure, Aunt Johnson still has some rationality. Luke and I have been in a relationship for 5 years, and we've been open and above board about it. The proposal has already been announced to the world through our social circle show. Had a respectable and decent family allow their daughter to interfere in such a relationship? From what I've heard, Aunt Johnson is naturally conservative, has always been haughty, and has worked in the system for half her life. She's more worried about damaging her reputation than anyone else. Furthermore, am I really willing to watch my boyfriend be taken away? As the saying goes, a barefoot person isn't afraid of a person wearing shoes. Compared to Ava, I'm the one without shoes unless Ava and Luke can end up together. The Johnsons won't dare to take this risk if they still want to marry their daughter into a family of equal standing in the future. Besides, isn't it just Luke? There are plenty of good men out there at us, just because of the filter of first love that I've been reluctant to let go for a long time. And if I can let go, why can't Ava? I won the bet 2 days later, when I talked to Luke about Ava again. He said, she went abroad. She left first and will slowly choose a school. Aunt is accompanying her. Ava had been idling around in China for a year and couldn't decide on her future path. But after just one visit from me, she made up her mind. I averted my eyes, pretending not to notice Luke's thoughtful expression. I guess the Johnsons' parents finally realized the seriousness of the situation and didn't dare to turn a blind eye to their daughter's inappropriate behavior anymore. Ava's going abroad obviously dealt a blow to Luke's mother. Or maybe Aunt Johnson told her something, and she might have guessed that I had something to do with this. So, the next time I visited their home, she clearly told me not to come often. As for the reason, she claimed that she wasn't feeling well and needed to go to the hospital. She had headaches, shoulder pain, and her eyes were also bothering her since the hospitals in City A couldn't find anything wrong with her. She went all the way to Beijing, Shanghai, or Guangzhou, thousands of miles away. In fact, she just wanted to cut off the connection between Luke and me. There were still so many tricks what I could think of. Of course, Aunt could think of too. It didn't matter because I had already received my first offer. Although it was only a half scholarship, it was still a great encouragement. In the future, I would receive more offers one after another. I had already paved the way for my future. I was still maintaining the status quo only because I wanted to leave gracefully. I was very considerate and encouraged Luke to accompany his mother to see a doctor in another city. Luke refused, fearing that it would delay his graduation. I gave him a lecture on behalf of his mother first, saying, children should be filial. So, Luke had to rush between the hospital and the school, and he had already accumulated a small stack of high-speed rail tickets. Aunt was finally exhausted and returned to City A to recuperate. At this time, I noticed that Luke had lost weight, so I volunteered to make some nourishing soups for him. Since there were no cooking facilities in the dormitory, I went to Luke's wedding house. Luke had given me the key to Baihuan Garden before, but I rarely used it. The housing prices there were expensive, and I was afraid that Luke's mother would think I was after their money. But now, there was no need to avoid suspicion. I wanted them to think that I was revealing my true nature. I frequently went in and out of Baihuan Garden, cooking for Luke. Of course, his supervisor and classmates also got to share the food. There were friends of Luke's parents living in the same community. When they occasionally saw me carrying an insulated lunchbox and stopped to chat for a while, they would naturally praise me for being virtuous. These words would surely reach Luke's parents' ears. Gossiping a bit, these friends might even ask Luke's parents when their son was getting married so that they could send a red envelope. I knew that the time was almost right. On Luke's 24th birthday, I invited everyone in the laboratory to help celebrate for him. The location was, once again, by Juan Garden. I took pictures of the decorated living room, the cake I made, and the hot pot ingredients I prepared. After gathering 9 pictures and retouching them carefully, I posted them on my WeChat Moments with the caption, "For the rest of my life, I've reserved you by my side." I used to rarely show my affection publicly because I've always believed that true happiness doesn't need to be flaunted in front of the public, but this time, I broke my own rule and showed my love openly. Luke's mother has my WeChat, and I knew she would see it. I guessed that she would try to put a stop to it. And indeed she did. We were eating, drinking, and having a good time until 9:30 in the evening when his aunt came over. Luke's classmates greeted her one after another. However, with an elder present, no one wanted to stay for long, and soon they suggested leaving. I said, "Auntie, you're not in good health. It's better to go home and dress early. I can clean up the living room and the kitchen." But the aunt smiled and pushed me out. "Zoe isn't officially part of the family yet. I can't let you do the chores. You should go back to school with your classmates." I had already guessed the purpose of the aunt's visit. She didn't want me to stay overnight in this house. Luke could live in this house with Ava. But I wasn't allowed to stay with him. It was quite interesting. I pretended not to see through the aunt's ulterior motives and went back to school with the classmates. But halfway there, I realized I didn't have my phone, so I had to ask 2 classmates to go back with me. I had tampered with the front door a bit, leaving it not fully closed. Through the slightly ajar door, the aunt's angry voice came out intermittently. "She's not even married yet. But she's already inviting friends over at home. Who knows what she'll be like after getting married? I told you before, son. I've never misjudged anyone in my life. That girl Zoe is full of schemes. People from her province are like those who dig lotus roots in ponds, full of tricks. She just has her eyes on our house and money. You have to be careful and not be deceived by Zoe anymore." The heart that I had been holding in suspense finally settled down. The result was even more perfect than I had imagined. After waiting for 2 months and repeatedly provoking Luke's mother by acting as his fiancée and taking care of his daily life, I finally made her lose her temper. The moment she exploded was the perfect time for me to announce the breakup. I stood there like a statue. The 2 classmates beside me exchanged glances and came over worriedly to pull me. "Senior, it seems like Auntie is in a bad mood. How about we go back first?" One of the 2 classmates who accompanied me back had been competing with Luke for the scholarship. Either openly or secretly, the other one had a natural penchant for gossip and knew all the rumors in the college like the back of her hand. I was sure they would tell everyone who should know what they had witnessed tonight. I gave them a helpless smile, then knocked softly on the door and calmly pushed it open. The mother and son, who had been in a standoff in the room, were both startled, but I remained as calm as ever. "Sorry for the interruption. I forgot to take my phone." I took the phone out from between the sofa cushions and turned to look at Luke. He looked both embarrassed and ashamed, not even daring to look at me. I smiled at him, but a tear precisely rolled down my cheek. I had practiced this before, and crying from this angle made me look quite pitiful. The engagement ring that I had been holding tightly in my palm dropped to the floor with a thud and rolled a few times before stopping at Luke's feet. "And we're breaking up." I used to think that those who were heartbroken and cried their eyes out after a breakup were just being melodramatic, but now that I've experienced a breakup myself, I realize that it is indeed a bit exaggerated. I wasn't as sad as I had imagined. Maybe it's because my heart has been broken so many times that I've become insensitive as I expected. The 2 girls who witnessed the entire breakup told the story. Since the news of Luke's proposal to me had been a bit of a sensation, and the reason for our breakup was so infuriating, many people sent me WeChat messages to comfort me and scold Luke. By the way, I didn't reply to any of them. Since I wanted to be the kind girl who still wishes her ex well after a breakup, I shouldn't say too much. Luke's mother wasn't wronged. I am indeed scheming and full of tricks. It's just a pity that at the beginning, I also held my heart out without reservation and offered it to the person I loved. It was him who broke it with his own hands. A few days later, I had pretended to be haggard from the breakup long enough. I stopped staying cooped up in the dormitory and occasionally went out to do experiments. Luke stood at the dormitory entrance regardless of the weather. He looked rather pitiful. Of course, he had sent me countless text messages and made countless phone calls over and over again. He said things like, "My mom is my mom, and I am me. I truly love you, Zoe. Please give me another chance." I was so annoyed by his persistence that I started looking for company. My roommates were even more indignant than I was. When they were annoyed by Luke's pestering, they would loudly rebuke him. "What's wrong with our Zoe that she's not good enough for you and has to be insulted by your family? You're such a heartless person. You might as well spend your whole life with your mom." At such moments, Luke really had no way to defend himself. He couldn't deny the words his mother had said with her own mouth. And before this, I had indeed been a flawless and perfect girlfriend. There was something even more heartbreaking. Jackson also learned about my breakup with Luke. So he came to confess his love to me with a bouquet of roses. Luke was standing right downstairs in the dormitory building and watched me come out and accept Jackson's flowers with his own eyes. He seemed to want to come forward and stop it. But in the end, he didn't do anything. I left with Jackson under Luke's gaze. How could Jackson be sincerely confessing his love? He just loved to stir up trouble. I treated him to a meal. During the meal, I friendly informed him that I was planning to go abroad to study and focus on healing my broken heart. Jackson was quite smart. Once he understood my rejection, he immediately started scolding. "Luke is really a jerk just because his family has a bit of money. He's been guarding against people like they're thieves. Zoe, don't worry, in the future, when we have our undergraduate class reunion, we'll definitely not invite him." Although I didn't think Jackson was a reliable person, I still smiled and thanked him. He's also in a difficult situation. Don't make things hard for him. Jackson clicked his tongue in amazement. "Even in this situation, you're still speaking up for him. Well, this guy is really blind for not cherishing such a good girlfriend." I played with the vegetables on my plate with my chopsticks. In fact, I also bear some responsibility for how things have turned out between Luke and me. If I had been a bit smarter, I would have recognized earlier what Luke's parents thought of me. I would have broken up with him when our relationship was still shallow, so that neither of us would have been in such an awkward situation. If I had been a bit dumber, I might not have seen through his family's precautions against me. I would have happily married Luke and had children with him. Living in a muddle, my whole life could have passed by like that. But I'm just a bit stupid, yet not too smart. This breakup was like being cut by a blunt knife. It was only now that I gradually began to feel the excruciating pain that seemed to tear my heart and liver apart. It's not that I don't love Luke. It's just that I will always love myself a bit more as graduation approaches. More and more people are inviting others to farewell dinners. At first, I would always politely decline. Only after making sure that Luke wasn't present would I agree to attend. But eventually, I still bumped into him once. I turned around and left immediately. The host chased after me. He had originally wanted to persuade me, but when he saw me on the verge of tears, he froze. Zoe, I'm sorry. I was bewitched by that guy and hid this from you. He just wants to get back together with you." I dried my tears and pretended not to see Luke hiding in the shadows. "He's such a good person. I'm not worthy of him. He deserves a better girl. The girl who grew up with him since childhood is a perfect match for him." I don't know which word touched Luke, but he suddenly rushed over and grabbed my shoulders. "Zoe, you know everything, don't you? I'm a jerk. I should have told you earlier. Ava is full of lies. Don't believe a single word she says." I was so scared that I took a few steps back, trying to break free. Luke became even more agitated. "I don't like her at all. What my parents think is their business. Why can't you think about me for once?" It was exactly the time when the off-campus food street had the largest number of people. We made such a commotion that everyone turned their heads curiously. I covered my eyes and seemed to be crying even more sorrowfully. "How else should I think about you? Your parents look down on my poor family. Am I supposed to have no pride, just because I'm poor? Should I marry you even though I'm being looked down upon? The person I love can't even protect me from being hurt no matter how much I insist. What's the point? Luke, if you have the time to interrogate me, why don't you go and persuade your parents to give up their prejudice? Because you're afraid, because you're a coward, because you don't love me enough at all." These words were not very clear in pronunciation and the logic was a bit weak. But they were enough to portray an image of someone who had been compromising and was now at the end of their rope. More people gathered around to watch. Among the crowd, I had already seen a few junior students from university. Some people were even taking pictures with their phones. Our mutual friends tried to separate me and Luke. And several tall and burly guys who were having skewers by the street also joined in. Hey. Is a grown man harassing a girl? Don't be ungrateful. Somehow, in the chaos, Luke threw a punch and hit someone's chin. The person let out a cry and fell to the ground on purpose. Those guys immediately pinned Luke down and called for the nearby security guards and the police. The person who was hit staggered to his feet. And he actually looked a bit familiar. Oliver, with his bleeding lips, leaned close to me and said through gritted teeth, "It's just a coincidence today. I'm doing a good deed every day. And today it's for Sister Zoe. Don't worry. I definitely won't let him off easily." The dispute escalated, and 5 or 6 people were taken to make statements. There were surveillance cameras all over the street, judging from the video. Of trust documents in the video. Luke was the one who started the fight and bore the greatest responsibility. And the injured Oliver refused to mediate and insisted that Luke should be punished as graduation was approaching. It was better to have fewer troubles. Luke's parents rushed over quickly. They apologized profusely and tried their best to soothe the situation, even came to me and begged. "Zoe, go and tell the police officer that it's normal for you two lovers to have a bit of a fight and quarrel. There's no need to." I showed them my bruised elbow. "Uncle and Auntie, Luke and I have been broken up for several months. He has been pestering me. I haven't reported him to the school security department yet. And that's already out of respect for you two. If you still distort the truth, I don't mind telling the police officer that Luke has been tailing me. Maybe he had planned this fight in advance. If I say that, the nature of the matter will change. You two should think about it carefully." The two of them turned pale, but because they were in a public place, they didn't dare to lose their temper. Uncle Smith pulled his wife and was about to leave. But she seemed still angry and muttered something under her breath. "What did I say? A girl like this is simply not worthy of entering my house." I had always been gentle and obedient. But this time I didn't hold back. I calmly looked into Luke's mother's eyes. "Auntie, you're mistaken. It's Luke who's not worthy of entering my house." At this, even Luke's father, who had always been kind, changed his expression. "Young lady, one should be honest. My family has always treated you well." I smiled back at him. "Then please, Uncle, make it clear exactly how well you've treated me. Could it be that I've spent your money?" Before Luke's father could speak, his mother angrily said, "You spent Luke's money. And all of Luke's money comes from us, the house we bought for our son. You could just move in with your bags. Isn't that enough? You also encouraged Luke to go abroad with you to pursue a PhD, Zoe. Can your family afford it? You still have to rely on us." This time, I really smiled. I took out a small notebook from my bag, opened it, and stuffed it into her hand. I said word by word, "This is all the expenses. Since Luke and I started dating over the years, he spent some money, and I spent some money. We've always gone Dutch, fair and square. As for your family's house, I haven't lived in it for a single day so far. As for where I got the money to study abroad," I said, shifting my gaze to the back. "Luke, your mother may not know, but you do know. But you do know. Right?" Luke stood silently not far away. His eyes were full of pain, as simple and straightforward as he was. He probably never expected that his parents would be so aggressive. He said hoarsely, "So he gets the national scholarship every year. He also gets allowances for business trips and projects. Sometimes she takes private jobs and does part-time work. She has excellent grades and also gets scholarships for her PhD studies. Mom, I've told you this many times. So he really isn't after our money. Why do you never believe me?" His mother was both ashamed and angry, and she gritted her teeth and said, "Son, you've really been bewitched by that vixen. When you're out and about, you need to spend money everywhere. She's talking nicely now, but in the future, Luke suddenly burst into laughter. He was laughing while wiping the tears from the corners of his eyes. Mom. Stop talking. There's no future for me and her anyway. Saying this seemed to have drained all his strength. Luke's shoulders slumped, and he looked completely dejected and dispirited. He slowly turned around and walked towards the door step by step, looking at his back. I only felt a sense of desolation. He was clearly a tall guy of 1.8 meters, even taller than his father, yet whenever his family was at odds with me, he would always avoid getting involved and had never once come to my rescue. Even in this situation, when I pressured Luke to say something fair, he still took the opportunity to escape from everything. I spoke softly, my tone full of sorrow. I've tried my best. It was you who backed down first. This time, I believe Luke truly understood that there was no longer any possibility between me and him, and the reason for this impossibility was his cowardice and lack of courage. This was definitely not my fault. I think he probably won't come back to me to get back together in the future. Luke, as in my relationship, was finally completely destroyed by his parents. Hence, Luke's parents had bribed quite a few people, and even managed to contact Oliver's parents and friends, so Oliver decided to take the opportunity and back down, agreeing to mediation. However, before that, he kept changing the various clauses of the mediation agreement, giving Luke's parents a really hard time. After everything was settled, Oliver asked, "Let me treat you to a meal." I refused with a smile. "Forget it. I'm not after his family's money." Oliver insisted, "Since they gave it to me, it's my money now." I poked his swollen chin and lips with a smile. "Come on. With your mouth like that, how can you eat? Just take a rest." The matters at school had come to an end, and I took a leave of absence to go back to my hometown. On the way, I checked my phone. Someone had posted the video of Luke hitting someone in various WeChat groups, which caused quite a debate on campus. Some people said that the guy was impulsive and reckless, while others said that the girl was heartless and cold-hearted, and someone popularized the reason for our breakup, and the debate became even more intense. The so-called rational observers stood up and typed on the keyboard, saying, "A big disparity in social status makes a marriage inappropriate. The girl was greedy and deserved to break up." Surprisingly, quite a few people liked this kind of comment. There's no way around it. There are always some creatures in the world with unique ways of thinking. They think they are aloof and independent, but in fact, they are just clowns. I no longer cared about these things and was ready to pull myself together and spend more time with my parents. To my surprise, my parents had sold their house in the town and were planning to move back to the countryside. We're both retired now. It'll be nice to go back and grow some vegetables. We sold it for 300,000 yuan Zoe. This money will be your dowry. I hadn't told them about my breakup with Luke yet, but now, it was time to be honest. My parents didn't have much education and didn't know many big principles. But they knew that when marrying off their daughter, they should give her the best as a dowry. The time when my parents came to City A to visit me during my first year of graduate school was the first time our whole family went on a trip together. Looking back now, when Luke's mother insisted on treating my parents to a meal in City A, she probably had the intention of checking out my family background. My father wasn't very good at speaking. At the dinner table, he exchanged pleasantries with Luke's mother. "Our child is away from home, and we can't help her much. Please take good care of her for us." Luke was very enthusiastic. He wouldn't let my parents stay in a hotel and insisted that they stay in Baihuan Garden. So we just bought a new mattress. It's very comfortable. Looking back, Luke's mother's smile seemed a bit bitter at that time. Probably, in her view, first I bought furniture, and then my parents stayed over, which was undoubtedly a declaration of my ambition to take over their family. And my parents, even if they sold all their assets, only had a mere 300,000 yuan, which wasn't even enough to buy a garage in City A. How could I blame Luke's parents for being suspicious? No one's money comes easily. It's only reasonable for them to be cautious and demanding. I held back my tears and gave my parents a hug. "Mom and Dad, don't worry. I won't let others look down on our family. I definitely won't." Finally, I successfully graduated from university. The recommendation letter written by my supervisor played a big role. and I successfully entered another top university to pursue a PhD degree. I also received the largest amount of scholarship that students from University B had applied for in the past 5 years. I moved from one campus to another although my living expenses were enough for me. Studying abroad was extremely difficult. The feeling of being intellectually overwhelmed was there all the time. The most hateful things were racial and gender discrimination. The ABC guy in my group was the one who liked to mock me the most. Sometimes it was really too hard. And I couldn't help but hide under the covers and cry almost every day when I opened my eyes. I would ask myself, was it worth it? But I always told myself, just hold on a little longer. A greedy person like me wants too many things. How can I get them without going through some hardships? It took me a full 6 months to get through the language barrier, and another 6 months to gradually find my place in the laboratory. Only then did I feel that life was back under my control. Occasionally, to adjust my mood, I would also check Ava's social media accounts. Ava studied the most superficial major in business. She quarreled with her mother so often that her mother couldn't take it anymore and returned to China, refusing to talk to her daughter. Her credit card was suspended by her family, and she was forced to apologize to her parents to get her living expenses again. She still hadn't completed all the credits even in the 3rd year of her master's degree, but her purchasing agent business was doing quite well. Later, she returned to China and was getting married. The groom wasn't Luke. I asked Oliver to help me send a gift of money to Ava's wedding in person. How much should we give? 500 yuan. Oliver didn't get admitted to graduate school, so he simply gave up on taking the exam and decided to work as an event planner instead. He was good at understanding people's feelings, and he was doing quite well in his job. We would chat with each other occasionally. He was surprised and said, "Why is it this amount?" This was the price of the bracelet that Ava had given me when I went abroad to study that year. I didn't have much luggage. Besides the necessary clothes, I only brought that bracelet with me whenever I felt that the future was bleak and difficult to endure. I would take it out and look at it for a while. It commemorated that love of mine which started with sincere feelings but ended because of material reasons. Moreover, it could remind me that I was like a child without an umbrella, who needed to run harder so as not to get soaked through. However, I don't like to owe others, so I'm going to return the money to Ava. Consider it as if I'm buying it with my own money. After attending the wedding, Oliver came back and complained to me. The guy she married is quite handsome. He seems to be an internet celebrity. Her parents probably weren't too happy. They had a gloomy face throughout the whole wedding. Oh, she seems to be pregnant already. Maybe that's why her parents are unhappy. It's said that the man used to. I sneered and said, "All right. I asked you to give the gift money, but you don't have to come back and dig up so much information." I thought that was the end of the matter. Unexpectedly, not long after, I actually received a call from Ava after all. Our social circles aren't that big. She just needed to ask someone to get in touch with me. She politely thanked me for the wedding gift money after not seeing each other for a few years. Her voice sounded a lot calmer and more mature. I said, "It's nothing when we first met. You gave me a gift for our first encounter, and I was really touched." She suddenly seemed a bit tongue-tied. I don't know if it was due to mood swings during pregnancy, but she actually burst into tears with a loud cry. Actually, I want to say sorry. I was too willful back then. I hurt Luke, and I hurt you even more. I'm so sorry, Sister Zoe. This apology sounded rather ridiculous, so I couldn't help laughing, but I still remained polite. It's been so many years, there's no need to bring it up again. Is there? Ava sniffled and continued crying. No, I really feel sorry for you too. Luke hasn't been doing well these years. He dropped out halfway through his PhD studies and refused to find a job. He went to help in his mother's company. But all he did every day was attend social events and play games. He's almost 30 years old and still hasn't found a girlfriend. His aunt has introduced many girls to him, but he refuses to meet any of them. We all say, "He's waiting for you." I've heard about it. And you haven't been in a relationship either. So if possible, could I please ask you to consider him again? I listened to her rambling and didn't say anything. Was it so strange that Luke remembered me? We were each other's first loves. We met in the most passionate years of our lives and accompanied each other through the 5 most wonderful years, although we didn't end up together in the end. It was enough to leave an unforgettable memory on each other at least. From the information I knew, Luke hadn't had any female friends around him for all these years. However, he might not necessarily be waiting for me. Maybe he was just so disappointed by his parents that he didn't want to fall in love. I lazily asked Keva, "Consider him again? In what capacity are you asking me this? As his childhood friend or as a girl who used to have a crush on him?" Ava retorted, "I never had feelings for Luke, if that's what you're worried about." "Then you were just lying, weren't you?" "I didn't do it on purpose. It was Auntie who asked me to find a way to break you to up. Auntie always said that you and Luke weren't a good match. If I could make you feel inferior, you would leave him. Auntie didn't think much of me a few years ago. Why does she suddenly approve of me now?" Ava hesitated and said, "She still loves Luke in her heart instead of watching him being so negative all the time. She'd rather let me be with him." I really couldn't help laughing. "Sorry, I don't have that intention. I'm doing fine now. And I don't want to look back on the unpleasant past." Ava sighed. "Won't you consider it again?" "Well, all right then. I've always known that the one who was truly dissatisfied with me was Luke's mother. Ava was just following her wishes. I'm afraid that this phone call was also somewhat by Luke's mother. But I've always had a doubt." As Ava was about to hang up the phone, I finally asked a question. "Ava, even though the Smith family dotes on you, like their own daughter, and you're a girl with your own ideas, why were you willing to listen to them and deliberately break up Luke and me? Luke really cared about you. He regarded you as a friend. Why did you treat him like this?" Ava took a short breath and said with difficulty, "Because I was jealous of you." I was a bit confused. "You were jealous of me? This was really unexpected." Ava had both money and looks. You could even say she was a "why was she jealous of me?" "Do you remember that you helped me with my homework once? I got a perfect score on that assignment. The teacher specifically came to me and praised me as the most talented Chinese student he had ever met in the following 3 years. I wasn't without efforts. But no matter how late I stayed up or how hard I studied, I could only get one comment every time: 'It's such a pity, Ava. You're a smart student. You can even write an essay so perfectly, but why don't you work hard and prepare well for the exams?' I'd had no way to explain. At that time, I knew, Zoe, I was really jealous of you. I was jealous that you could reach a height that I could never reach in my whole life so effortlessly. So I wanted to destroy something that you had, to make you less proud. I did succeed. You and Luke didn't end up together, but I didn't feel happy at all. It's hard to describe exactly how I felt. There was shock. There was helplessness. And more importantly, there was a sense of relief. I had thought of many possibilities for why Ava was being sarcastic. Maybe she really had a crush on Luke. Maybe she looked down on my ordinary family background. Maybe she thought I wasn't likable. But I really didn't expect that she thought she wasn't as smart as me. It turned out, but I also had something that she was jealous of. It turned out that that sensitive, fragile, suspicious, and insecure girl was actually envied by others. It turned out that when I didn't know, it wasn't just me secretly envying Ava for all her luxury goods. She was also secretly envying me. It was really ironic. But it also suddenly made me feel free. Even so, when I happened to be passing by and went to see Luke, I was still a bit surprised. Over the years, I've been keeping this bracelet. I've taken it with me wherever I went, but I've never worn it. The diamond is dazzling and bright. The carving is exquisite and meticulous. Ava has a good taste. It's really beautiful. I quietly admired it for another minute, then took it off, put it back in the box again, and pushed it deep into the drawer and locked it. No matter how gorgeous or expensive it is, it's just a cold ornament. Besides its beauty, it's of no use at all, so it's not suitable for me. I still have to go to the laboratory later. It's very inconvenient to operate the equipment while wearing jewelry.